But anyhow, yes,
Hi.
bye. Hi.
So today we will speak about your piece, Narcissus. In this piece, you use a stance. Can you just, as a first question, can you just give a short background of the piece? When it was composed, for whom it was composed, who commissioned the piece?
Yes, this piece is grown organically as a concept because I love perfumes and I'm what we call a fume head. That means that I was very much always busy my whole life knowing how perfumes are, how they're constructed, how they are composed, who they are making this, who are the people behind the perfume, who are the composers, let's say, of the scents. And from the one came the other. I also met in this way my friend and scent expert Tanya Durlo. With here we collaborated to make Narcissus. Um, it was back, I think, in 2012, if I'm not wrong. It's a long time ago now. I have written lots of pieces and I don't remember the exact dates, as you see. Anyhow, somewhere around then, I had this idea of bringing the violin and the piano together in a piece, that the violin and the piano are in a way not together, but they're looking at each other. Because the sound of the piano, the sound of the violin, I think they are not really, really going very well together, although there's so much literature, of course, with this. But still, the sound of the violin is like very rich in also microtones. I mean, the piano is like very rich in resonance. So there's a lot to say about these two timbres of these two instruments. Also, these two people, these two musicians that I wrote it for, Gerard Bajas and Helene Hulst, there are these two soloists that I wrote it for them and their ensemble that's called New Amsterdamse Pedal. That's a very, very, very active contemporary music ensemble in Amsterdam. And these two musicians, like Gerard and Helene, they fell in love and they are married. So I thought, wow, how is that the sound comes together? How do they look at each other? And then the concept started developing about making a piece about Narcissus. We know the mythological archetype. Narcissus is the very, very handsome young person, young hunter, young guy, running around in different, let's say, beautiful archaic woods or whatever, with lots of waters and lakes and a lot of moss and all that. And then he was very cruel because he was so handsome that everybody would fall in love with him, men, women, whatever. And he could not answer their love. He couldn't feel it. I was very much intrigued in this mythology, in this mythological aspect. And then I made my own interpretation of the myth that Narcissus actually, when he looked at himself in this lake, he got realized, he understood what love is, but then it's not that he died because he was sad, it's because he was fulfilled. I mean, he was finished, like his destination was finished to realize what love was. So this whole piece is about a ritual uh, of going from the one world to the other world. So it's like water is, let's say, the mirror, the place where you can go to the underworld, to the other place. So that's how I constructed the piece. That's how I made it, and that's how we also composed the scents around it.
And tell me about this. This is very interesting, right? So you had two instruments and sense, and what was the role of sense of creating this sensorial experience for audience?
Yes. Well, just to correct for a moment, to be very clear, it was the piano and the violin, like as soloists, but we
Yes.
also have the companion of the piano. The
Okay.
instruments were done the harp and the horn, and the companions of the violin was the cello and the bass clarinet. So we had six musicians with violin and piano as soloists, a kind of double concerto idea. The sense, we were discussing with Tanya about these ideas of the two worlds. We were discussing about the sensuality, but also the ritualistic paganist side of this piece when you go from the one world to the other. Also, the frequencies of the violin when it comes in the piano resonance is also very, very important, also for the scent composition. So we constructed, let's say she actually constructed a scent composition out of 5 layers, with the idea of accumulating them and diffusing them in specific moments of the piece in a contrapuntal kind of action and way according to the music. So I'm cueing all the time which kind of perfumes are diffused and in which moment in the score. And we need a kind of stereo kind of diffusing. So there are 2 stations and we need 2 persons to diffuse to make it happening. And you have to be able to read score, at least one of them, otherwise you cannot trigger it on the right moments.
Yes. And you said the 5 perfumes, right? Can you name
it? There are 5 notes. We have the green one, which is, we have 2 greens actually, the labdanum and the olibanum, I think. No, labdanum and galbanum. These 2 are the green ones. They're very sensual. They're very like green, let's put it that way, but also with a depth, kind of skin depth. And this is for the echoing part, the first part, like of the piece. If we could think that there are 2 parts, which is a very organic whole to say it like this, but anyhow, just for the interview to make it clear. We also have a sacral one, a ritualistic one. It's amber, like it's an incense that we are burning literally on stage, on a wok that is being heated. So it's not about having also smoke, but you have to burn it yourself on a kind of pan or whatever. And then it comes in another way. It's another sensation, if I may be clear. The sensation of the burning incense is very different than when you diffuse it from the oil. And it's very different when you also have a perfume that you spray. And so Tanya thought of all these things because it's her job. So we had different techniques of doing the diffusing the scent. In the middle of all of it, we also have a constructed part of the perfume, which is a more complex note. So it's not a mono notes, not a single one, but it's a more complicated perfume that Tanya did with collaborating with a nose that she knows very well. And this just gave also a complexity in the whole. We call it the Narcissus heart, it's the real Narcissus kind of composition that comes in a moment as we proceed in the piece. And then all these notes, we also have a little citrus one to add in the sensuality and the complexity of the whole. The idea was to build it up as a resonance, because also in the piano, I also used sometimes 5-note chord constructions, also a Narcissus chord that is very clear when it comes in the piano. The resonance is just very clear when you hear it. And the idea was to build up the, let's say, the scent of Narcissus that he's transformed to flower after he's realized looking himself in the mirror. So at the end, you smell the whole flower. I mean, that's the whole idea. So it's an hour-long adventure and a ritual. Yes.
And what was the role of the scent, right? So it was a memory or some kind of feelings or emotions or...
It is an independent experience as a counterpoint to the music. So it's not about perfuming the music, if you want to. I mean, I wouldn't be interested in that. I don't like to illustrate things. I don't like to use things just for decoration. It is an essential part of the piece that develops parallelly with the music as another presence and another manifestation of Narcissus. Like you have Narcissus manifesting in his whole manifestation, like also as a flower, but also as this amazing, I don't know, beauty or whatever it was. And then also to have this sensuality and sacral ritualistic side of it, and the flower who actually was used in mysteries in ancient Greece. We don't know exactly how, because that's why they're called mysteries, because we don't know what they were doing. And probably also because the root of this flower was having narcotic qualities. So until so far, this piece also, my piece, like Narcissus, in the music and with the scent, would like to have a narcotic influence on the audience.
Got it. And how long it took for you to create the piece, and what was the stages, right, of creating?
The different stages are um, are focusing very much on the timbral, let's say, interference of the violin and the piano, and that's how I have built it up. It's, as I said, an organically grown composition. Very important is that then the two Narcissus kind of instruments, like the violin and the piano, they're having moments together, but they're also having moments separately. And they are also having like moments of meeting together with their friends, or they are then alone. So it's a whole choreography of the music with all these elements. And as I said, through the whole of it, there comes this moment that the whole timbre of the piece changes and the whole material is changing, because the violin sound takes over from the piano sound. That's why I group the instruments like this as well. And technically speaking, there's the first whole thing that is based on resonance and echoes.
Yes.
And then the second, let's say, big moment is when the ritualistic part of the instruments, they play a lot unisonos or together, or kind of very different material that you hear.
And about we asked question about the stages, is at which stage and how it was you thought about perfumes and how the synchronization or the standby was built. You created music
Yes.
and then it was built, or it was built at the beginning, or
well, that's also a very interesting question. Thank you for asking it, because it seems that Tanya says to me that historically speaking, it hasn't happened before, perhaps, that a composer was smelling the moment that was supposed to be composed. So I was smelling what she was giving me for these moments, and then I was writing it. So in a way, I could smell the moment.
Got it. So particularly, I say understand, right? You have a common concept, as Tatiana, who made these perfumes, five, right, or five basic notes. She gave it to you, and based on that experience, based on this scent experience, you compose the piece, right?
No, we were doing it together. That's why it's very interesting. She didn't give me all the perfumes from the beginning. So when I was writing, let's say the green moments, the moments that you're in the woods or whatever, the sensual ones, she was giving me different options. And then we were choosing the galbanum uiteindelijk. After all, I'm sorry, there was a Dutch word came in. So I was choosing the galbanum and here together with me, but also not only the note of the perfume, but the moment, the musical moment that I was composing. I knew that this smell would smell.
Yes.
And then, according to different moments of the piece and according to different resonance, I was triggering these notes in the piece. We were also agreeing with Tanya in which moment, for example, the heart of Narcissus would come. Then I knew that when these hunting scenes or whatever, resonating wood scenes with all this sensuality and diffuse kind of sphere, would come to this hunting moment of them too, like catchy moment of the violin and the piano. I knew that, yeah, there would be the seductive moment, and then the heart of the Narcissus would smell as well, would flourish. Mm-hmm. So the whole thing would be like imagining how a flower is flourishing, in which moments of the flourishing would come, and in which moments of the piece in 1 hour long flourishing, you know, would appear. So and at the end, we had a kind of apotheosis of the scent. So after this ritualistic moment and proceeding in the unisono, quite fierce kind of dance, or whatever you could imagine, you could say for it, where all the instruments are playing in unisono, they get very intense. And then in these moments, which is, it lasts quite long, we are spraying all the scents, all the notes. And then we are aiming that at the end, when the last breath of the horn is finishing the piece, quite symbolic, because the horn could be like the angels' trumpets, like these flowers, you know, these huge, amazing night flowers that they scent amazing. So you could also imagine that the horn is a flower dying in the air, and then you finish, the piece is finishing, the resonance is on the air, but also the resonance of the perfume. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So when you would come in the hall after the piece is finished, you would smell Narcissus. It was smelling like for hours in there. And the idea was, of course, that you wouldn't be able to take away notes that you were creating, because then you would need pipes and another experience. So the idea was to build up a perfume for this piece, yes, this specific piece.
And I have a question. Can you imagine the same piece, right, but without using the perfumes? Would it work?
I can imagine a piece without the perfumes, but it won't be complete. I have also composed a Narcissus suite version only for violin and piano. Yes. This is absolutely not a problem to play it without the sense. But if you take all this trouble to have the group, you could have the sense as well. I mean, we are writing what kind of sense they are. Every professional would know, except from the hard one, which is a specific composition.
Yes. Yes.
You need to ask Tanya to give it. But for the other ways, I mean, you could perform yourself, or you could ask Tanya to come. Sometimes I could come too, because I know the cues, and we did it in Greece, and I was the one together with Tanya diffusing perfumes on stage. You have to also take away your shoes because you shouldn't make a noise.
Yes.
So it was like this kind of things. We are gonna play it in Holland on the 11th of August, but I'm not gonna be there. So we have asked another young composer to help.
And what kind of technology you used for diffusing the scent, right? How it was?
Yes. As I said, Tanya is the expert for this, but there was a diffusion of oil, like it was let's say a device that was heating up the oil, and it was escaping out of the hole. It was with spraying, and with having a fan diffusing it as far as it can go down in the hole. We had the burning, also technique of burning the amber.
Yes.
And that's actually what we were doing. So it was like three methods, like spraying, diffusing oils, and burning incense.
Yes, well, and
I have to be clear, the incense burning, it's not about smoke. We didn't create like you have different incense, stick and all that stuff. It was pure the retin that we were burning.
Yes, got it. But you said there was these diffusers. Are they manually controlled, or they are some programmed, and or
we are manually controlling the diffusion.
Got it.
in this twofold, you know, stations. Like, so you have a stereo diffusing experience, which is very nice. It's very nice because there's kind of nymph kind of I don't know, radiation of these two, you know, persons diffusing the perfumes. So I mean, you could also have, if you want to be dressed in a specific way, you could even. But anyhow.
And the last question. So you have created the piece, right? When you have used these things and you have some learning experience. Can you share some three advices for other composers who would like to create the piece with using the sense as well? What?
I can give one advice, which is like, don't think that by putting a perfume somewhere, you will be like doing multisensory compositions. I would give advice, just think of your idea and make the scent a part of it. Just make it an organic part of it. Make it a part of the composition. Whatever concept you have or idea. I mean, mine is very clearly kind of this narrative display, as I said. Everybody does it in a different way. But I just want to say that it's not a superficial thing to use a scent in a composition. It is something is not done very much. It is a history, of course. It's not that it's done only in our century. It's done also in the previous century, beginning of 1900. They were also creating narratives by smelling different smells in a city. So you travel in New York. I think that was one of the first multisensory like projects on that. So there is a history on that. So we say like study the history. And when you are making your concept and being inspired, make the scent a part of it. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense to just send a concert hall. I mean, everybody's sending everything these days. So you don't need even to mention it if you're doing it like this.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for this interview.
Thank you as well.